The name of the game isn't to escape reality, but to develop what I call conscious participation. When you experience the 3 levels of reality in the correct sequence, what shifts is your ability to engage with life through choice rather than conditioning. By the end of this, I'll show you exactly which level you're operating from, and more importantly, you'll have a clear path forward. So you've probably noticed how matrix awareness often creates more problems than it solves. Seeing the conditioning everywhere, in media, relationships, work, society. The scope of it all is overwhelming to take in. Conventional awakening approaches fail to guide us to freedom because first, they confuse seeing the trap with being free. Recognition is only the beginning. Second, they indirectly create a false binary between awakened and asleep when the reality is far more nuanced and layered. And third, they offer no real practical framework for navigating reality once you've seen through all the illusion. In practice, I've worked with scores of people who showed up more confused and disconnected after awakening than before. Understanding the matrix intellectually, yet still without any idea how to live skillfully within the reality they found themselves in. So let me show you the 3 levels where consciousness and reality converge, because the matrix wasn't saying nothing is real. It was asking a far more sophisticated question. How much of your reality is conditioned rather than chosen? How much of what you call reality is actually just inherited programming running automatically in the background of your consciousness? When you truly understand the matrix metaphor, you recognize it operates on 3 distinct levels of consciousness. Level 1, societal conditioning. This is what most people focus on. Media manipulation, social engineering, cultural narratives, psyops. The Matrix isn't just science fiction. It's a direct descendant of Plato's allegory of the cave. Plato wasn't saying the shadows on the wall were evil or that the cave itself was a prison to escape. He was describing the natural progression of consciousness from conditioned perception to direct knowing. This is important, but only surface level, because you can't clearly see through societal conditioning until you've addressed your own perceptual filters. Which brings us to level 2, psychological conditioning. Your personal history, trauma responses, belief systems, attachment styles, identity structures. This is where the real work begins, and it's where I do a huge chunk of my therapeutic work. The Gnostic tradition, which deeply influenced Matrix mythology, wasn't about rejecting the material world. It was about developing perceptual literacy, the ability to distinguish between direct experience and conditioned interpretation or bias. And so when you begin working at level 2, something profound happens. You stop asking what's wrong with the world and start looking at what am I bringing to my experience of this world? This is where you discover how much of your perception is shaped by unexamined patterns from your past, hiding beneath the surface. But still, there's an even deeper layer. Level 3, consciousness conditioning. This layer filters down to how consciousness itself creates the experience of individuality and separation. How awareness gets identified with its content, how the observer becomes entangled with that which it observes. The directors were heavily influenced by Simulacra and Simulation, the book that appears in the film. And the author wasn't claiming reality was fake, but that our relationship with reality is mediated through layers of representation and conditioning. This is the more metaphysical layer of consciousness. Often I consider this metaconsciousness, the part of you that understands you're not contained within your body. You're not the content of your thoughts or your actions. You're not your emotions or even what you consider yourself, because you can observe all those things. You're a part of a larger awareness, operating on a temporary individual basis. True matrix awareness isn't about escaping any level. It's about developing a conscious relationship within each one. You don't transcend conditioning. Instead, you develop the capacity to choose your relationship with it, to modify the influence on your reality experience, the space of observation that offers you choice. And so when you apply this understanding, you stop trying to eliminate conditioning altogether and start developing what I call conscious participation. You engage with work, relationships, social structures from a place of choice rather than unconscious reaction and reflex. And let me be absolutely clear what we're talking about, because there's a lot of spiritual bypassing and reality avoidance masquerading as matrix awareness. This isn't about escaping society, rejecting work, or abandoning relationships and responsibilities. That's spiritual adolescence, not awakening. This isn't about transcending your humanity or your body, bypassing your emotional or psychological development. And it's not about creating another identity around being awakened while everyone else is out here sleepwalking. But this is about developing the perceptual sophistication to engage with reality consciously rather than reactively. Becoming so clear in your own awareness that you can participate fully in life without being unconsciously driven through the engines of each layer. And the most liberating truth, the matrix isn't something you escape. It's something you learn to navigate consciously. When you completely understand that, you begin to experience reality from a different dimension of awareness. No longer fighting the conditioning because you start using it as information. You stop trying to wake other people up and start embodying the clarity you've discovered. You stop seeking escape and start mindfully engaging and shaping your reality experience. The real freedom isn't freedom from the matrix, but within it. And that freedom comes not from seeing through the illusion, but from developing the capacity to choose your relationship with whatever arises in your slice of reality. And so this brings us to something crucial that we'll explore in the next video. Why waking up can often feel worse before things get better, and why most people get stuck in what I call awakening limbo, seeing the problems clearly, but having no way forward. Because in truth, this work isn't meant to be done completely in isolation. Real transformation happens with others who are also committed to the same depth of inquiry and practical application. It's through the connection with others who are also consciously choosing how they experience reality that you can really gain momentum. I'm working on developing a space where we can explore all of this together. So if you're ready to move beyond just understanding these concepts intellectually and actually applying them in ways that transform your experience, keep an eye out. And before you go, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever felt more lost after waking up than before? Or experienced that gap between seeing the conditioning and knowing how to live skillfully within this reality? Let us know where you are in this process. Your experience matters, and it helps everyone in the community understand they're not alone navigating these deeper questions.